Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Janine Dancing Crow Bolon, a devoted scientist at heart, has an in, has a curiosity about the intricacies of life and its underlying principles. With a robust 15-year tenure in the pharmaceutical industry, she chose to leave corporate America to focus on homeschooling her four children, all while successfully managing various side businesses. Her extensive portfolio includes authoring 17 books, creating 93 online courses, and producing 4 podcast programs and a radio show, all aimed at imparting her knowledge on balancing a fulfilling life that encompasses family, friends, and clients without stumbling to burn out. In addition to her achievements in business and education, Janine is deeply rooted in spiritual practices as a sacred clown, shaman, bell dancer, and first chakra healer. Her spiritual journey, enriched by over 2 decades of learning from an enlightened Hindu guru and Native American elders, led her to initiation into the Thunder Clan following a lightning strike. Utilizing totem animals, Janine facilitates shamanistic healing to aid individuals in navigating relationship, wealth, and life path challenges. She encourages you to set forth your life-changing intentions, offering her expertise to guide you towards realizing the life you envision. Thank you so much, Janine. What an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you, Gina. You're very kind. I appreciate you so much. Thank you for inviting me on to Shine Within.
Oh, of course. And audience, just wanted to let you know that Janine has like the most generous heart in the world. When I was pregnant, I first told her that I had to go ahead and reschedule the podcast is because I was not feeling well. And we all know that I told you the story that unfortunately I lost my baby in April, but Janine was so kind and sent me goodies and even some plant seeds to grow. And this is what it is. So kind and loving. You brought so much joy in my day when I received that. I'm like, oh my goodness, thank you. So what an honor to have you on my show. Welcome.
Oh, thank you. It is such a pleasure. And like we were talking in the green room, I really just want to know how we can best, you and I together, serve our communities, because I feel that as women in this era, our job is to bring about cohesiveness. There is so much division happening in the YouTube space and all that. And I'm like, it's going to be kind of up to the women to bring it all together and honor the men we love and cherish, and at the same time, our sons, our uncles, and at the same time, helping empower those people who may feel disenfranchised.
Right. Yeah, you're so right. And we were just discussing also about the story about a crow that was in my crib when I was a baby as my first memory. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. It was scary at first because I didn't know what was going on. And then all my years of then growing up, and I always felt crows were annoying. They would always be around me, cawing at me, and just like, are they going to attack me? What is going on? But I've been talking to a lot of spiritual leaders, and they're just sharing with me, no, Gina, these crows are there for you. They're your animal. And they're like, you actually need to start feeding them, connect with them more. And so I have been. So I was just like, you know what? Let me try this out. And I tell you, I'll say, I mean, I see at least like 10 every day flying by my window. They'll just be like, even when I'm picking up my son from school, I'll be waiting in the car. And then there was this like crows just, doing their thing on the grass. And I said, hey, in my mind, come over here. Come and say hi to me. Sure enough, they all flew. And I even videotaped some of them. I was like, oh, and they were like looking at me and everything. So I love your name, Dancing Crow. I know there's some connection going on here. I'm like, it was meant for me to speak to you. So your journey from scientific world to the realms of spirituality is deeply intriguing. And I just get excited when I talk about spirituality. It's like one of my favorite topics. Could you go ahead and share what first drew you towards exploring the metaphysical aspects of life?
It was one of those things that I was seeking answers to crazy things that were happening in my world. And I now understand that they weren't really crazy things. They were just extraordinary experiences for an ordinary person like me. I'm just a human being wandering around in this meat suit like everyone else. But yet there's this dimensionality to us that a lot of people don't understand. And so I didn't understand why people were crying at a funeral when everybody was saying they're dead, and I was seeing them waving at me like, hi, I could see them. I was like, well, they're not dead according to me. They're like, we're having a conversation.
Yeah.
I was 4 years old. I was told to be quiet, and my poor mom, I can't blame her at all for how she handled it, because it just wasn't acceptable at that time. To be able to see those sorts of things meant a lot of crazy things. It wasn't as accepted as it is now. And so, there's a whole journey of unwrapping a lot of the training you got when you were younger. You're very familiar with this. And then also the aspect that I was in a dependent facility, meaning that my dad was in the Navy. And so I was a dependent that would follow him around the world with my rest of my family. And so I was exposed to Buddhism, Hinduism. I was exposed to Shinto faith and Shaolin monks. And there was all kinds of experiences that I had with various religions. And what was fascinating to me was the patterns were the same. I saw similar patterns in all of them. They used different names. The culture demanded different roles from these spiritual leaders, but in the end, I saw a similar pattern. And so my path was actually, I wanted answers. And I was too stubborn to give up. That's what my guru said. I was like a squeaky wheel that wouldn't get the grease. And the more he greased me, the more like I demanded from him answers. And so in the end, he said, you know what you remind me of? I'm like, what is that? He goes, you remind me of the little 3-year-old baby standing up in those wooden cribs, and you have your metal cup and you're running it up and down the bars until Divine Mother comes to you and answers your questions. And that's kind of how it ended up happening. I ended up being able to be toe to toe, face to face with the divine, and was given all the answers I've ever asked to why I'm here, what is Earth about, what is, so I have my answers. And now I spend my life dedicated to others who are seeking theirs.
That's so beautiful. I was also sharing with you that someone was reading my Akashic records, and that's the soul record library, huge library of your soul, every life experience you've experienced. And someone said to me that, hey, did you know that you were a shaman in your past life as a male? And a tribe that still exists to this day? I'm like, really? And I was just fascinated by that. But then I'm like, wow, it makes sense because this lifetime now that I'm living, I love doing massage therapy work. And I was sharing with you earlier that a lot of people say, oh my goodness, you have healing hands. You have a gift. And I didn't really take that seriously back then. I was just like, oh, whatever, I'm just giving you a massage, you relax. Of course, you're going to feel that way. But it wasn't the case. And then I really started my healing journey after I became sober in 2017, from years of being destroying my brain cells, destroying my spirit, just numbing myself. I couldn't become myself because there was no Gina. And once I started tapping back into my spirituality again and my inner self, then I started, I mean, talk about quantum leap or shifts or whatever you want to call it. I was like, okay, this is like a massive roller coaster. Am I really ready for all these things? These things are happening. I'm like, but it's so beautiful. And I told myself, don't be afraid, Gina. It's okay. And I was just at my uncle's funeral this last Saturday. Yes, we were all crying and because we're sad at the moment, but we all knew that he was there with us. My uncle, we all knew like this isn't the end, I mean, this isn't the end. And it's amazing, as a little girl you were actually able to see. Now, do you actually see spirits still to this day?
Sometimes it's a clairvoyancy is kind of the beginning. Then you have clairaudiency, clairgustancy. There's 5 clairs. Now, some people argue with me and say there's more than that, but to me, I like to make things simple, not complicated.
Yeah.
So if you want complicated, go to other teachers. If you want really nitpicky, I'm sorry, that's my bias. If you want highly detailed information, just go to other teachers. I'm a lumper. I like to put things in broad categories so that the largest number of people can be included in that labeling. Okay. And so I'm a lumper. I admit to that. I am not a highly detailed oriented person unless it comes to my own personal path. But if it comes to educating others or assisting others on their path, I have a tendency to be a little bit more broad strokes. So let's say it that way. But for me, I've always had all five clairs. They came on at different times, depending upon what the need is, depending upon what the healing is. So it doesn't surprise me at all that at one point you were a shaman, and it doesn't surprise me at all that people feel healing happening through your hands. And the way we use it in the modern world is just by our understanding that the three-dimensional space-time that we're operating in is but a little sliver of all that we are. And that when you start opening yourself up, like you did when you stopped self-medicating, which is what I call people who are addicted to drugs or addicted to alcohol or something that they feel is not helpful to them, sugar, it just depends on the person as to what they feel their addiction is. I always go, just remember, as human beings, we're very obsessive. We enjoy being addicted to things. So pick the good ones. Yeah, just admit to it, acknowledge it. Mine is coffee. Some people are like, oh, coffee is bad for you. I went off coffee for 6 months. It's a calmative for Janine. It's best for people. It's like I'm saving lives when I drink coffee and eat chocolate. These things make the world a better place for those around me and myself. But, it's like every person has to figure that out for themselves. So you were self-medicating because you had experiences that you didn't understand. You had traumas that you were really internalizing because you did not have training on how to keep it external. And also, you didn't have the training or the understanding, however you want to say that, or the remembrance. Some people say you didn't remember that people, a lot of times when they're attacking you, they're attacking the reflection in your eyes. They're attacking the part of themselves they cannot stand to see. And oh my gosh, there you are, Gina, exhibiting the very things they want to keep in the shadow. And how dare you bring that out into the light where they can see it?
It reminds me of my book that I was starting to write, but then I kind of paused for a little bit to focus on some other project that I'm working on. The book is called From Shadow to Shine.
Exactly.
Yeah, sometimes we have to go to those shadows to then shine. And
Mm-hmm.
I was self-medicating. Oh my goodness. And then it became from like social, habitual, then to dependency, where I felt like my body I couldn't even talk or walk if I didn't have alcohol in my system. That was that bad. But now I love coffee too. I
Pick
love
your
coffee and
yeah,
chocolate.
embrace your addiction, understand it for what it is, and move along. Pick the ones that are not going to harm you as bad. So like some people go into exercise, and we lovingly call them, the body kings or the body queens, whatever. But they're these amazing bodybuilders or whatever. Well, they're taking their obsessions and they're using outlets that are healthy for them. Okay. And my favorite quote came from it was a drunkard that I ran into in southern Georgia. And he goes, honey, you can go on to the extremes on anything. And he's slurring his words and everything. I'm like, that's a gold nugget. I'm writing that down right now. That's truth right there. You can go to the extremes on anything. So if you feel the need to be obsessive, pick something that's healthful for you.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now I want to talk a little bit about the medicine wheel. I, I know there's different kinds of medicine wheels. I heard of, was it the Andes medicine wheels? I'm not
Oh
sure.
yeah. Oh yeah. Honey, if there's a culture around that had a tribal format of any kind, there's a medicine wheel of some sort. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, can you go ahead and explain the process of walking the medicine wheel and how it is varied across the different cultures and tribes you have worked with?
So just as a quick executive summary, I have been fortunate enough to live in Japan and be able to work with shaman monks there. I've been fortunate enough to visit Thailand as well as several Eastern European countries. And then I've also been able to be with Peruvian shamans. So I've had an exposure to a lot of different cultures and ways that they go about doing their spirituality. If you walk in a circle and you're doing that while saying prayer, that is a medicine wheel. That is my very broad. See, I told you I'm
Yeah,
a
I love it.
lumper. I lump all this stuff because
I love it.
I've seen so much. Now, if you're in Buddhism, you'll have prayer wheels that you'll spin. Well, that's kind of a medicine wheel because they have writings on the side. Those prayers are constantly in motion as long as someone is spinning them. And for me, prayer is asking. It's asking for healing, help, guidance, wisdom, whatever it is. Meditation is when you shut up and listen for the answer. What does a shaman do? A shaman has certain sorts of lineage. They usually have some sort of a power or ability that is outside the normal scale. And some people are like, oh, what is normal? Well, if you have to ask that question, then you're not a shaman. Just want to say that. If you have to ask the question, well, what is normal? Then you haven't learned who you are yet. Keep digging, you'll get there. Trust me. But as you move forward in life, you will learn what normal three-dimensional behavior is versus what is extra dimensional behavior or energy or abilities. Okay. And it becomes very evident to you very quickly whether somebody is normal three-dimensional human versus somebody who has extraordinary gifts that come from the fourth dimension. Okay. So that's Janine's broad strokes on what it is to be a shaman. Notice I didn't bring any religious tendencies in there because to me it's a spirituality. Religion is a way of creating ceremony for large groups of people. See, being a shaman is great. As soon as you bring in a second person, okay, that's a dance. You bring in a third person, okay, that's the witness. You bring in the fourth person, you have a wheel. You now have the compass. You have north, south, east, and west. That's very two-dimensional though, because north, south, east, and west is you can do on a piece of paper, right? It's a map. As soon as you turn it into a globe, ooh, and you start spinning that, that brings in a whole nother level of calculus and three-dimensional equations. That's the scientist in me having a little bit of fun at your expense.
Love it.
But the medicine wheel is a term that a lot of Native Americans to North America use. Wheels, you can call them prayer wheels. There's all kinds of different ways. But if you're if you're walking in a circle and you're doing it with an internal prayer that you are repeating, or a mantra, or an affirmation, or you're just on a leisurely walk around a baseball diamond that happens to be set in a very large field with 3 other baseball diamonds, you can actually use that as a medicine wheel, and I have on a couple of occasions.
Oh, wow.
You can create a medicine wheel anywhere, and it's basically an active form of prayer. And I recommend this for people who are very kinesthetic. If the idea of sitting still for any length of time causes you to start breaking out in hives,
That makes
and you start thinking about your third eye, sitting somewhere very quietly, chanting Om for a couple of hours. I have done that.
Oh, wow.
And you feel like you want to break out in hives at the mere thought of this, you may find walking a medicine wheel a better format of spirituality for your particular prayer cycle. So that's where I talk about the medicine wheel.
Oh, wow. I love how you say it because, yeah, you don't have to go into every single little detail and confuse everybody like, oh, forget the medicine wheel now. Too complicated for me, right? But you've laid it out so beautifully where it's easy to then understand. Now, like, I love walking around what's called Lake Elizabeth in
Oh,
Fremont,
yeah.
California.
Mhm.
Is that part of like the medicine wheel too? It's like a circle almost.
Yeah, it's almost a circle. So the thing is when you have a medicine wheel, you pick out what is north, south, east, and west. And you
Mm.
can usually figure that out pretty well, unless it's high noon on June 20th and it's the summer solstice.
Oh,
Then you might get a
yeah.
little confused. But otherwise, you break out your scouting compass, your orienteering compass, and just figure out where north, south, east, and west is generally. Do not get worked up about this. The universe does not care. The divine is just excited that you're joining the party. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Oh,
The
yeah.
fact that you've accepted the invitation and you're joining the party, okay, because you're helping create a better world. Every time you pray, in whatever format that means to you, you're making the world a little bit better. Why? Because you want to be better. You're asking for the world to be better so you can be better. Or you're asking the divine, help me be better so I can help the world be better. It doesn't matter which way it's going. Both are appropriate. Okay, so anyway, north, south, east, and west. And every tribe I have worked with, which is over 16 different types of tribes, every tribe has a different way they use the wheel. So we're not going to confuse you with what is right, wrong, or indifferent, depending if you are Lakota, Maipe, Mosquito, Inuit. We're not going to go there because there are thousands of nations that use the medicine wheel. Okay. So what we are going to do is you're going to pick out north, south, and east and west. And general broad strokes are usually these. Usually, the North Gate is the place of healing. Okay. It's where your happiness lies, it is where your heart is asking to go. General. Okay. That's the North Gate. So some people enter their medicine wheel from the North Gate. They'll walk to that place, and then that's where they set their intention and they move into the North Gate, and then they start walking clockwise. Okay. And you walk clockwise down to the East Gate. East Gate is creativity, illumination. If you're a Buddhist or a Hindu, you know we all face east, right? Face east when you want that inspiration, when you're wanting the divine to see you first thing in the morning. Okay. So that's kind of what you do with the East Gate. The South Gate is usually that of the emotions, the dreams that you have that are unfulfilled, the desires that you have for betterment. That's where you go, is the South Gate. And that's where you kind of stand and you think about those aspects. And then the West Gate is my favorite. And that's because of the type of spiritual person I am. And that is, the West Gate is the one of transformation, change, and transmutation. Some people say it's the death gate. It just depends on who you are. Because if you walking out into the West, it's the end of the story, right? Yeah. Every great Western, from the Italian spaghetti Westerns to the American Westerns, the hero rides off into the sunset. End scene, right? We have blockaded you. That's the end. That's the bookend. And that's why some people face West for their evening prayers, because it's the end of the day. It's the close of yet another chapter. They're moving into night. Okay, so that kind of gives you broad strokes what you do with the medicine wheel. Now you can use it for anything: spiritual healing, emotional healing, physical healing, or mental healing. But the biggest thing is you're going to get information if you will be quiet.
Yes.
Be quiet in your head. Okay. So you set your intentions at each gate, and see, you got 4 of them. So it gives you an opportunity, like, oh crap, I just went into the to-do list and what groceries I need to get after I'm done here. Don't get into that. Don't get into that, as we like to say, don't get into that tar pit. You don't need to become that. Just say, okay, I'm halfway around the wheel. Here comes the South Gate, and focus on the South Gate and try again. You get 4 tries, and guess what? You can walk the wheel as many times as you need to, right?
Right.
So the thing is give yourself grace. If you are not going to love yourself, nurture yourself, and consider yourself worthy for this time, then why should anyone else? And this is how you become a part of the divine and create the life that you feel you are worthy of. And you hear a lot of talk about this now in the spiritual community. I'm so happy we're evolving to where we're finally giving ourselves permission to do these things. So whether you sit and say your rosary, or you're using your Kriya beads, or you're sitting there doing your affirmations, I don't care what your process is. If you want to get up and move around because activity is now a part of what you're supposed to be doing, then you may want to give your hand a try at the medicine wheel.
Oh, I love that. Yes. No, being still was very hard for me to, was very hard to do. I really did get a lot of clarity when there was just silence. And then just noticing, like hearing the birds, sometimes the crows. Yes. I'd be calling back there too. Hey, what's up? You know what, Janine? That's the first thing I hear in the morning as soon as I wake up. I'm like, good
Caw,
morning
caw,
to you
caw.
too. Well, good morning to you also. Every morning it seems like. And it was funny. Just a side note, my husband and I went to Hawaii this last May, end of May. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to see a crow over here, in Hawaii. all these tropical birds. And then, sure enough, we went to the zoo and there was a crow there. Beautiful. I was like, all these animals. Oh, I feel so bad for them being dropped, but they're just so beautiful to see. They look actually very happy there. Most animals are not happy in zoos, obviously, because they need to be free. But these ones looked happy. And but there was, sure enough, there was a different type of crow, but it was a crow, and I was like, I saw my crow today. But being still, back to what I was saying about being still, it was very hard for me to do. And but I noticed I was gaining a lot of clarity and guidance. If I didn't know what I wanted to do next, like what was my next step to this, issue or problem I was having, I just take a deep breath, breathe in, slowly breathe out, and a couple of them. And then all of a sudden, there's a light bulb moment, like, oh, and I have to thank the divine, like, thank you so much. But I think everyone's so busy and caught up in the world and their program state, like robotic state. Like, I need to do this, that. Yes, when we try to sit still, yes, we'll have those grocery items come into mind, like, hey, I need to buy this later on in the day. How do we get rid of those thoughts in our head that are just kind of like in there when we're trying to be still? Any suggestions?
Oh, I do have some suggestions. And you know what? I wish I was the one that came up with this, but I didn't. This is from Eckhart Tolle in The Power of Now. He also mentions it in A New Earth. I'm quite the little scholar, as you know. I'm a scientist. And so I would have experiences and I would read a book and I'd find out some other mystic had had a very similar experience. And so I have a collection of books on spirituality. And so I pull from all those teachers who have confirmed for me that I wasn't really going insane.
Yeah.
So when it comes to all those busy thoughts, Eckhart Tolle uses this metaphor. He goes, your mind is not your thoughts. Who you are is not your thoughts. Okay. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts sometimes can come from programming, right? So when you understand that aspect, even if it's a little confusing to you, kind of see that we're starting to split you away from what is organic training instead of what is your true self. You can tell that that's trying to be happening. Even if you're confused by it, don't worry about it. Just stay with us here. So what you do is you sit down, and I encourage you to sit still on this because it's just fun. Okay, this is a
Yeah.
great game. And all you need is me, myself, and I. That's all you need.
Yeah.
So you sit down and you say in your brain, you go, okay, I'm going to be like a cat looking at a mouse hole. And the next thought that comes through as a cat, I'm going to pounce and delete it. Like, and I'm going to see how long I can go between looking at that mouse hole as a cat and waiting for that thought to come out. Well, see, the ego is what is generating a lot of those thoughts because the ego is like a 3-year-old. And to any mother, you know that a 3-year-old will not allow you to go to the bathroom by yourself.
And some cats too, and some cats.
But this is why we use the metaphor. Those people who did not have children, you may have a pet cat.
Yeah.
You understand? They are with you always. So anyway, so that cat will sit there, and it's amazing. The game is how long can you go? And it doesn't take that long, even for the most rustled of brains. It doesn't take that long before you start to see it slow down. You start to see it slow down. It gets longer and longer between pauses, and you'll feel yourself regenerating. You'll feel yourself getting your battery literally energized. So I have people all the time that go, my God, Janine, when do you rest? I'm like, I rest whenever I'm not thinking. And they're like, how do you do that? Right? You know, especially men, because men are very good in their brains.
Yeah.
I go, you know, that spot in your brain. I say this to men because it's not as always as true for women. But for men, I'll say, you know that spot in your brain where you can sit, you have absolutely no thoughts? And they're like, oh, yeah, how do you know about that? I'm like, because I've been there.
Yeah.
I said, go to that space. He goes, yeah, but sometimes stuff comes in. Nope, stuff isn't allowed in that room. That's your room to listen, to receive that wisdom that the divine is trying to impart to you. The guys get it. Okay. They're not always successful, but they have the experience. Whereas women, we're the internet world wide web. I mean, we don't have barriers. We don't have boundaries, firewalls. Oh, we laugh at firewalls, right? That's our brain.
Yeah.
And so for us, We actually have to be that cat, and we force the thoughts to come through a mouse hole. It's very effective.
I'm gonna have to try that. That sounds amazing.
It is amazing. I can't wait for you to tell me all about it.
Yeah, I need to practice that. And everything is a practice, I mean, you may not get it right, but that's okay. We're learning. We're all learning together.
That's why they call it art. Nobody
Yes.
walks out of the womb having artistic skills, or if they do, they've got past lives, as their backdrop. But even an artist will tell you, yeah, I always had a predisposition where I was really good at this, but then I wanted to learn that. Like, there's always an evolution. And anytime there's an evolution, guess what? You're practicing.
Yes, practice, practice. Now, actually, what would you say to someone who is skeptical about the power of walking the medicine wheel and its ability to facilitate change?
Oh, go find something else. Yeah,
There you go.
if you're skeptical and you're distrusting of it, please go find something that resonates with you. Oh my gosh, it is not. There are 9 billion people on this planet right now, and I don't think that the medicine wheel is a tool everybody has to use. Oh my God, no. There are so many good teachers on this planet now, more than we've ever had, ever. And go find a good teacher that you trust and learn as much you can from them. And then when you feel complete with that teacher, move on to the next teacher. They will not resent you for it. If they do resent you for it, it's because they're going to miss you.
Right. Now, on the other side, could you actually share a personal experience where this practice significantly actually impacted you or someone else that you guided?
When I walk the medicine wheel and I'm doing it for a community, I have watched amazing things happen. I've watched communities grow. And believe it or not, there are times when a community needs to die. And so a lot
Mhm.
of people will bring me in to help a community close gracefully. And so a leader will know that they're getting ready to pass on. They can feel that their time is imminent, and they look at their community and they realize there's no one that can really take the wheel. There's really no one that can pass their shroud to use the Jewish format. And because that mantle cannot be passed on, they want to close the community and let the community go figure out what are next steps for them. So I've done that on several occasions for my Buddhist friends. So to me, it's a very graceful way of saying goodbye to something that served a beautiful purpose, but now that 16-year cycle is done and it's time to move on.
Yes. Now, this keeps popping in my head, the being struck by lightning. You were literally struck by lightning?
Yes, I was.
Oh, can you please share that experience?
I was in middle school, and I'll be honest, in some podcasts I say I was 8, some podcasts I say I was 11. It's because I really can't remember. Um, I'm gonna
Sometime back then.
I'm gonna fess up right now. So I kind of split the difference and say around 9 or 10 ish, give or take a year. I was young, okay, and I was in the islands of Eleuthera, and I was standing in my living room, and in a cloudless sky, I was struck by lightning through the house into the living room, and there was no scorch marks or anything, but there were 2 witnesses. It was my mother and my sister. And my sister, who is not a screamer, she wasn't like, she was a tomboy. She wasn't like one of these screamers. She screamed like
Wow.
at the top of her lungs. She thought it was dead. She really thought something had come out of the sky and had killed me on the spot. Whereas my mother, because smoking was big then in the 70s, um, she's sitting there, and I remember her cigarette stopping like mid stop. That moment of time is frozen for me. Like, I remember it clearly. And then I was struck by lightning. My father was taking a nap in the back bedroom, comes roaring out thinking somebody has died because he's a Vietnam veteran.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
So he was having his PTSD moment.
Yeah.
He comes out, he looks at my mother, she's fine. He looks at my sister, she's fine. He looks at me, and I'm just standing there blinking, like, because I couldn't see, I couldn't hear, I was deaf, I was blind, I didn't know who I was.
Yeah. Wow.
And he yells and he goes, "My God, I thought something horrible had happened." And of course, my mother finally finds her voice and says, "Janine was just struck by lightning." He takes one look at me and goes, "No, she wasn't." And off he walks and goes back to sleep. And I totally I don't think badly of my father for that. That probably was the best thing he could have done because it became a non-event.
Yeah.
It was like it was a non-event. You're healthy, you're alive, move on. And that's how my entire family was for most of my life. It was like, unless you were hemorrhaging blood or unless you were unable to breathe, it was not an emergency. And
Mhm.
that kept me in a really good place for a long time because everything else was just a difficulty and I needed to figure it out. So I was very grateful. I'm very grateful for that training. So anyway, that's kind of the struck by lightning thing.
Wow, I mean, that's an incredible story.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
is it written in one of your books?
Yeah, it is. It's in Seeking the Divine. So I have the Divine series and it's a 4 volume set and it kind of goes through the whole thing. But to me, this is the most important aspect. You don't need to be struck by lightning anymore to have a lightning strike of intuition, creativity, something like that. The reason I was struck by lightning was because of the life path that I am on. Being struck by lightning is a requirement for certain areas of certain Native American mysticism for you to be accepted into those circles. I have work to do in those circles. Ergo, I had to be struck by lightning. So
The
the
thunder
divine made
clan,
that
right?
happen, and I was protected because there were no scorch marks. I was not burned. People are like, how is that possible? I'm like, yeah, it's God's grace. That's about all I can say to that.
Wow, it's absolutely amazing. Now, for our listeners who are interested in incorporating shamanistic practices into their life, like me, like me, so what would be the first step you'd recommend?
First step is find somebody who is a shaman who is in alignment with your morals, your ethics, and your values. It is very important. Please realize just because they're a shaman doesn't necessarily mean they're operating in the highest frequency you want to be in. Please realize that we have shamans who still are active. You pay them $500 and they will curse someone for you. Okay. So just because they're a shaman doesn't mean, oh, they're one of the good guys in your moral interpretation. So make sure you're very clear on your own moral interpretation. What is your moral compass? What is your value system? What will you do? What will you not do for money? And then go after a teacher that is ahead of you on that path, and preferably somebody who is in alignment with your moral ethics and value system. That is paramount.
Wow. And do you guide many clients?
I have a few. I'm very picky and highly selective.
That's good. I mean, as you should be. That's good. That's a good thing. As you should be. Now, for our listeners who are interested in maybe getting your books or listening to you on your podcast, where can they find you?
The best way is I invite you for free to join me for my Open Friday coffee. I have it almost every Friday at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which is 8 a.m. Pacific. Um, my next one starts in July 12th, and I'll go almost every Friday for a while on that. That's the best way. Come on to Open Friday Coffee, listen to what I have to say to other people, bring questions. Like I am a college professor from many years, more than I care to share right here, but just say decades. I'm a college professor for decades. So bring a question. Don't just show up and think, oh, I'm just going to observe because I may boot you out of the Zoom meeting. I want to deal with people who have questions. I will answer them to the best of my ability. Why? You should ask me as many questions as I ask you. We need to make sure that we're both a good fit, or you're asking questions on who I might be able to refer you to. Like, yeah, Janine, you're cool. I think you're okay. Not quite my cup of tea. I'm looking for a teacher that's XYZ. I am tapped into so many really good teachers. I'd be glad to give you a recommendation of 2 or 3.
Wow, amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Janine. But finally, in this season of renewal,
I love it.
what messages or advice would you offer to our audience as they approach walking the medicine wheel with their personal intentions for transformation?
Uh, so first of all, I'm going to make the assumption that maybe the medicine wheel may not be your cup of tea. So whether it is or not, uh, my message is this. I don't care what spiritual practice you have. And especially like maybe you're an atheist. Okay. So let's bring in those people too. As I told you, I'm a lumper. I bring all the people together.
Yeah.
What is the thing? The thing is this, establish a morning routine and an evening routine. For those of you who are spiritually inclined, make sure that morning routine includes at least 15 minutes of quiet time. Now, if you have a lot of young children, I had 4 children in 7 years. I understand small children, but they do have to sleep at some point.
Yeah, that's right.
And a lot of times my spiritual practice was only once a day because that's all I could get in before I myself would collapse into unconsciousness into my bed. Okay. But you want to set up a routine where you spend at least 15 minutes of quiet time where you are listening to what the divine has to share with you in whatever format or religious preference you have for that. Then once a week, you want to spend an hour. Now, when I had small children and my husband at the time was on a contract and it was just, I was a single parent, I would hire a babysitter to come in and take care of my kids for an hour. And I'd go to the lake and walk around the lake because I needed time alone. It was that important to me. If you say to me that this is utterly impossible, and for some of you it might be, if it's utterly impossible, figure out an hour a week where you can just be with your own thoughts, even if you can't get off by yourself. Just sit with your own thoughts for an hour, and that will do you a world of good. And then once a quarter, find 3 days to go on retreat. So this is a system that is very ancient. It's been around for millennia. I wish I had been the one to create it. I am not. But this is how you used to be trained as a mystic. Every quarter you were in a sacred ceremony for 3 or 4 days. And then for 2 weeks out of the year, you were out on retreat in silence. You weren't speaking to anyone, and you had your shaman who you trusted, who was lighting a fire, who was bringing you food, so you could spend that 2 weeks by yourself. So do you see where our vacation system has taken the place of a very old mystic training ground?
Wow. Oh, more vacations. More vacations. I need more vacations. Like only once a year. Okay. Those are going to change. But anyway, what was cute is husband. I love that.
Well,
Sorry.
yeah, he's
That
he's the father of my children. I love him to bits, but I couldn't stay married to the guy. Yeah.
I'm going to use that now because I have a husband too.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah, yeah. And for the reason for whatever the reason is for the split, you still love him. I wouldn't trade those experiences, even the darker ones,
all right, right.
because I wouldn't be who I am today without him.
That's
Love him.
right.
Yeah,
Yes, that's what I was
exactly.
saying. I appreciate every experience that I have, even the
Mhm.
what you call bad ones,
The
because
darker ones,
the
yeah.
dark ones, because they create who I am today.
Mhm. He
So
he
yeah.
helped me evolve,
Yeah.
right? I evolved into, I feel, a better person. Exactly. Yep.
I feel like everybody that I encounter is a spiritual teacher in some form. Like everyone, I'm learning from somebody somehow. Like I learned a lot from you today, and I'm sure the listeners learned a lot. And you laid it out beautifully. Now I know more about the medicine wheel. And yes, I'm so excited that you have the PDF for me, so I can then share with my audience as well more about the medicine wheel if they're interested. So thank you so much for that. Any last thoughts or words you'd like to share that I
Yes.
missed?
I don't think you've missed. I highly encourage you, if you're listening to this later on as a podcast or as a video, definitely tune in and subscribe to what Gina has to offer, for she is someone who has come out of the shadows and is shining her light. Now, I know there are a lot of people who say they do this, but let me just share with you, the ones who are the most authentic are usually the ones that are the most demure. They're not out there showing you every aspect of their life. They're out there showing you the best parts of their lives to give you support when you are in your darkest times. Do not expect people like Gina to step down into the mud and they stand there with a fresh towel, fresh clothes, and say, come on, I believe in you. Come to me and I'll get you cleaned off and we'll get you moving where you need to go.
Wow, beautiful. Thank you so much, Janine. Like I said, your heart is just gold and loving. I want to give you a virtual hug. But thank you so. Oh, I love that. Yeah, it hurts. You know all these tricks. I'm like, I'm learning all this stuff. But thank you so much for being on my show, Janine. It's been an absolute honor to have you on. And thank you so much for sharing your wisdom to our audience today.
My pleasure. Thank you.